Hi, I'm Mohamed Gambouz, Game World Director, working at Ubisoft on Skull and Bones, Ubisoft Singapore studio. I've been at Ubisoft for almost 20 years now. Been in several studios around the world. The most recent one was in Montreal as a senior art director on Assassin's Creed Unity. Before that, I was in the Ubisoft Paris studio, and before that, Casablanca studio. Before Ubisoft, I started in the art area at the school. So I did fine arts studies for 3 years. And along those 3 years, with a couple classmates, we used to do some indie gaming. So we worked on few 2D games, adventures in our rooms. So it was mainly on Amiga 500 with no hard drive, just discs. From my recall, 6 megahertz clock speed, maybe 500 kilobytes of memory. So very limited power, but we had a lot of fun building those games. So this is where we were exposed first to the game development. So at school we were doing art studies, fine art studies. So the foundations, learning about art history, anatomy, architecture. And when we go home, this is where we expresses ourselves into making video games. It was a very good learning. We weren't familiar exactly with how the real process of games is done, so we improvised a lot. We switched to roles. Sometimes I'm doing level design, the other day I'm doing character design, the other day I'm doing environments. And to do environments, we used to have a big sketchbook with the grid, and we started making tiles, drawing tiles on them. Yeah, so we were four guys. Each one of us took a different role depending on the needs. Some does sound design, music, then the other day animation, then some programming. So it was a very good learning for us. So the moment we started at Ubisoft, because all of us joined the Ubisoft at that time, we were quite familiar with the process and the guts of how to make games. Obviously, we learned a lot from the first weeks, months, and years, but we've touched the process before entering Ubisoft. So that was a really enriching experience. To summarize it, it's the role that helps keep the world logical. So it's the job that makes sure that all the ingredients, either they are visual or they are gameplay, to be consistent as much as possible from world logic perspective. So we do a lot of research to all the ways of life, all the details of life, how people live, what's the culture of the place, what kind of people live there, what's their history, what's the economical context, the geopolitics, all those details. Once you have that, you start going through it and dissecting which parts do you want to keep, which part do you want to twist, depending on your needs and depending on what kind of treatment or personal treatment you wanted to give to that world and that place. You're not responsible necessarily of the story, because there is always a narrative team, but your role is to make sure that even the story is consistent with the art, is consistent with the world logic, with the the logic of the gameplay and the different ingredients and characters. And based on those details, you build your story. You help also the art team to build the visual, the look. You help the design, the game design, the level design. So it's something that's kind of at the center of many things. It has a lot of dependencies all across the board. One of the most recent projects I worked on as a senior art director, and the one I spent the most time was Assassin's Creed Unity. As you know, the theme is the French Revolution, and it was a really great experience and pleasure to have Paris as a playground. Actually, we did tons and tons of research, historical, architectural, characters. We really immersed ourselves into that world, and was great based on all this rich library we were exposed to start picturing and visualizing all the details of life from that era and in that place. The thing that as an artist struck me the most was the light quality in Paris. I've lived there and for a couple months, so that's one of the things that struck me, and it re-struck me again when we visited to do the references, and re-struck me again when I was exposed to the paintings from that era or that depicted the city. So there was always a specific attention and texture given to how light is, and to me it was the perfect key visual element to build upon the art direction, the engine, the features, and the rendering in general. It was also the perfect timing because it was the time where of the emergence of the PBR rendering, so it became more as a little by little the standard of the generation. So we decided with the team to give light and shading a central role to the art direction, and this led to have a very interesting look that's both realistic and has some visual poetry to it. It's very inspired by the paintings from that era. Looking at the final result, I think we succeeded into having this nice balance between realism and stylization. Roughly 4 years. I guess it's the standard for projects of this size and scope.